For the Saudi perspective, I'd like to welcome now Mohammed Alyahya. He is a fellow at the Middle East Initiative at Harvard University's Belfer Center, and he joins me now from Dubai in the UAE. Very good day. How has this news to restore diplomatic relations between Riyadh and Tehran been received in the Gulf?
It's a very interesting development. I think this is a development that tells a story of a rising Chinese strategic role in the region, much more so than it tells a story of Iran or Saudi Arabia or a rapprochement between those two countries. What we're seeing today in the Gulf is that the Chinese are walking the walk rather than just talking as they have about strategic issues in the past. Today, the Chinese have brokered this deal. They have considerable leverage over Iran, and they happen to have the same interests that Western Europe and the United States has in ensuring the free flow of oil through Bab el-Mandeb and Hormuz, those two choke points on either side of the Arabian Peninsula. So today what we're seeing is that China utilizing this vacuum that it sees left by the United States. It's no secret that American officials, specifically on the Democratic side, but also on the Republican side, have been touting this idea of pivoting away from the Middle East in order to face the China threat. The Chinese today are viewing the region and the Middle East as the primary arena for competition with the United States. So this dissonance has grave strategic consequences. And that's what we're seeing today. This is a story about China, much more than it's a story about Saudi Arabia or Iran.
All right, let's continue then on China, because as you have pointed out, it has played a pivotal role brokering these talks. In an opinion piece that you wrote for Foreign Policy at the end of last year, it was titled, "Why Saudis Don't Want to Pivot to China." For Saudis like me, nothing could be more disheartening than a divorce from the United States. So having said that and putting into perspective what is happening today and this week, what do you make of the state of U.S.-Saudi relations and China's influence? Could this backfire?
Right. So I think it's important to differentiate between the bilateral U.S.-Saudi relationship and the dynamics surrounding America's role in Middle East security. These are two different things. Of course, they're interlinked. U.S.-Saudi relations have improved considerably over the past year and a half, right? U.S. and Saudi officials had a working group just a couple of weeks ago in Riyadh. They're seeing eye to eye on more issues than they agreed on just a year or 2 years ago. But this issue with China and the region is a larger one. It's a strategic issue. It's a geopolitical issue. The Chinese have a base in Djibouti now. The Chinese are starting to look at the region in strategic terms. While, as I mentioned, the United States is trying to pivot away from the region in order to face this Chinese threat. So, of course, Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Gulf states do not see China or Russia or any other world power as capable of replacing the United States as a strategic partner for the Gulf. But that also doesn't mean that there is value that there is no value, rather, in the Chinese role in brokering this Iran agreement, for example. China is Iran's largest trading partner. It has considerable leverage over Iran. And at the same time, there are important economic relations between Saudi Arabia and China. So it makes sense. I mean...
But the U.S., of course, is historically one of Saudi's staunchest allies. And I'm just wondering, especially with the tense situation, bilateral relations between China and the U.S., does Riyadh risk overplaying its hand by alienating one of its most important allies?
Well, first of all, this deal, this idea of sharing the region with Iran, the idea of integrating Iran is not an idea that was come up with in Beijing or in Riyadh. right? This idea originated during the Obama administration and has been sort of repeated by the current folks in the Biden administration. It was, for the brief period where Donald Trump was in office, where that idea was retired. So, the idea of sharing the region with Iran, of finding this sort of modus vivendi, is not an idea that originated in Riyadh. And it's worth considering also that Iran's problem fundamentally is not with Saudi Arabia. There is this also mistaken idea in Washington that this is a 1,000-year-old irrational struggle between Saudi Arabia and Iran because one side is Sunni and the other side is Shia. The reality of the matter is the slogan of the Iranian regime is death to America and death to Israel. It's not death to Saudi Arabia, right? So it's through that lens, I think, that it's important to assess what's happening right now. And of course, it's important to also consider that this is not a peace, right? We see all these headlines saying that Saudi Arabia has made peace with Iran, or the Iranian-Saudi Arabian issue is behind this. It's history. That's not the case. I mean, all they've agreed is to reopen diplomatic relations and work towards respecting these basic principles like sovereignty and non-interference in the affairs of your neighbors, etc., etc. So, I mean, it remains to be seen where this goes.
Mohammed Alyahya, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.